Okay, welcome to my ratings for the NRL for round two. You will notice that some of these ratings seem a little bit off still because it's early in the season. We've only had one game for some of these teams, and Titans haven't played. They are weighted 60% to last season, 40% to this season. So we need to really wait for at least 3 games this season before these ratings are purely this season. So just keep that in mind when you look at the games like Panthers versus Roosters here, where it says it's really just a 2 point advantage to the Panthers, even though they are $1.06 in the odds. We need to take into account that it uses the ratings from last year still heavily. So let's jump in and have a look at the games one at a time. So Knights versus Dolphins. The Knights have rated 6 points better here in this game. Now, the handicap is essentially based off the ratings which are there when you look at the compared. So we've got the home rating of 94.5 for Knights, 79 for the Dolphins when they're away, and compared, that's a 15.5 difference, which turns into a handicap of 6. Lots of numbers. In the end, it does mean Knights are favoured to win this by 6 points. They are the favoured team, so that is confirming that they should be favourites. Now, it's a game that I would probably stay out of if you were betting. 6 points is not worth the $1.55 price. Next game, Warriors versus Sea Eagles. Now, Sea Eagles are heavily favoured over the Warriors, and if we look at how they did actually perform last week, Warriors were in Vegas, didn't play very well against Canberra, and the Sea Eagles pretty much had a really easy game against the Cowboys. So this is aligned to about a 14-point advantage to the Sea Eagles. Now, they are $1.34. I would probably take that one as a selection, so I'll just highlight that. So the Sea Eagles at $1.34 with a double-digit, a more than a 2-try advantage is worth a bet. The Panthers versus Roosters. This is heavily weighted to last year's Roosters ratings, which is why the Panthers are only at a 2-point advantage. Now, $1.06 is way too short. The Roosters surely can't be as bad as they were last week. And the Panthers did struggle to score against Cronulla. So I would be just avoiding that game. The prices are too short, and you don't want to be backing the Roosters under any conditions in that game. Okay, the next game has the Dragons rated 8 points in front of the Rabbits. Now, the Dragons didn't do well against the Bulldogs in the first half. The Bulldogs did clock off around half time and let the Dragons back into the game. Both teams aren't going to be that great this year. The Rabbits edged out a win against the Dolphins, but the Dolphins were much better in the stats when you looked at it at the end of the game. The Dolphins should have won that game easily, but they just couldn't convert the points, whereas the Rabbits took their chances when they popped up and pretty much won that game only just. So based on this, taking the Dragons at $1.48, based on what we saw against the Bulldogs last week, I would avoid that one. It's not a game that I would want to get into. It's still a bit too close to call. And look, if I had to choose a side, it's going to be the Dragons, based on what I saw last week. And if they continue how they performed in the second half against the Bulldogs and play like that against the Rabbits, they will do much better this week. The Cowboys versus Sharks. Cowboys were shocking at home, shocking last week against the Sea Eagles. Now, the Sharks played really, really well against the Panthers. It was obviously the top 2 teams of the round putting in a very solid defensive effort. This has the Sharks favoured by 4. Cowboys at home are always a good side back at home. They don't travel as well. Now, $1.35 in the odds for the Sharks is a no bet. It's just too short. We'd want those odds to be closer up to $1.70 with just that 4-point advantage. So I'm going to skip that game as well. But if you are tipping in tipping comps, definitely the Sharks do look like the favourites here. We've got Raiders versus Broncos. Now, Raiders at home, again, they get a bit of boost from being at home. Broncos travelling. Broncos have a bit of trouble travelling late in the season, but early in the season they seem to do okay. They do get a lot of home games early in the season, so they don't travel as much. Now, looking at it, we have the Broncos by 8 points here. Now, I do think the Broncos are the better side here early on in the season. Raiders did look good, but they played a pretty poor Warriors side. The Broncos did look very good in their game. So, saying that, the 8-point advantage to Broncos is not worth $1.22 in the odds. Again, we'd want that up around the $1.60 plus kind of range with just over a 1-try advantage. So let's skip that game as well for betting. It's just the odds are uneven and we're not getting any value there. Then we've got the Eels versus West Tigers. So looking at this, it actually has the Eels at a 4-point advantage. Now, this is a game where, again, it's heavily weighted to last year's ratings, and the way the sides have come out this season seems to be the complete opposite. So West Tigers look like they may have an okay season this year. Eels, on the other hand, look to be shocking. They also have the Brown announcing that he's leaving. So I wouldn't want to be taking the Eels regardless that this says that they're 4 points in front. So this is a stay out of the game as well. I do think if we looked at just this year's ratings, we would find that the Tigers are probably the better team here right now. And if we look at the last game being the Bulldogs versus the Titans, we haven't seen the Titans this season. They did put in some okay games pre-season, but you never know pre-season. Bulldogs looked really good in the first half, didn't look so good in the second half. They kind of switched off. So against better teams than the Dragons, that might cost them the game, but it didn't. So are they worth $1.41 at a 12-point advantage? My guess is yes, I think they are. I'll take that at $1.41. We've got a 2-try advantage there, and I think it's worth the bet at $1.41. Considering the Titans' first game, they need to start to find their combinations. The Bulldogs have had that game to get ready and get moving, while the Titans have been sitting on the sidelines just watching. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. So 2 bets. I'll be taking the Sea Eagles and the Bulldogs. Now, these were the odds which were available on the NRL site, which I think they use Sportsbet or Tab. I'll look to see what I can get on Betfair during the week. I'll likely get higher odds than what's here, but this would be the minimum acceptable odds that I'd be looking for in these games. Okay, if you are tipping, look at essentially, I would say Knights, Sea Eagles, Panthers, Dragons, the Sharks, Broncos. I'd probably go West Tigers versus the Eels, and the Bulldogs, which ends up being all of the favourites. The market has it pretty good this week. Okay, thanks for watching, and hopefully that helps you with your tipping comps and if you want to put some bets on. Thanks.